Hi everyone. I just wanted to go into this Conor Benn saga, for it is now a saga, one that shows no evidence of abating anytime soon, and beyond that into the use of PEDs, performance enhancing drugs in sport overall, of which I have some personal experience, or quite a lot actually. But we'll get to that later. But first, Conor Benn, we now learn that he has decided to relinquish, quote unquote, his licence to box under the jurisdiction of the British Boxing Board of Control in protest at the procedure that was being followed by them with regard to the adverse finding of clomifene in his system under a VADA test that was taken at the beginning of September. The results were made known to all the relevant parties involved in the Conor Benn Chris Eubank Jr. fight on the 23rd of September. Eddie Hearn claims that it was the board that leaked the story to the Daily Mail. He's also been up in arms about the board's handling of this process, which I am as well, but not for the reasons that he would adumbrate, but because the board never came to a decision much sooner, and it was much clearer as to who was in charge of the sport in the run-up to this fight, because with days to go, Hearn let the media workouts go ahead, he let fans buy tickets, buy hotels, pay for transport, because he wanted to salvage the fight, because he knew he would lose a lot of money. That was his focus entirely, and it remains so to this day. I have no time for Eddie Hearn, I must tell you. But anyway, the latest revelation that Conor Benn relinquished his licence was clarified by Eddie Hearn when he said that he didn't relinquish his licence. It had expired and he decided not to renew it. Clearly, Conor Benn knew that if he went to the hearing and the findings were upheld, i.e. that he was guilty of using a banned substance, then he would have found it almost impossible to box under other sanctioning bodies around the world, because this would have followed him like an incubus from country to country. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if there's some kind of rule that if one sanctioning body bans a fighter for using a performance enhancing drugs, then other sanctioning bodies will also ban the fighter, or they will hold the same ban. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But certainly on a PR level, it would have been almost impossible for him to fight with legitimacy anywhere in the world. So he decided to forestall the possibility of the findings of the VADA test and the boards being upheld at a board hearing into the matter, and him losing his licence rather than deciding not to renew it. We now know as well that he did not voluntarily sign up to VADA last February, as has been claimed throughout. He did so because that's a WBC diktat, that if you want to be one of the WC's top 15 fighters, you have to be signed up with VADA. That's the only sanctioning body that has that stipulation. So that's why he had signed up to VADA, because he wants to rise within the ranks of the WBC, which is, everybody knows, the main premier blue ribbon sanctioning body in boxing. We now have the scenario where Dr. Usman Sajjad, the doctor that's now being fingered, the one that people claim has been naughty with regards to advising, if not supplying, PEDs to fighters and athletes, he's come out and said in a podcast that was unearthed after these revelations regarding Conor Benn's adverse finding were exposed, that it's easy to beat a drugs test, that any boxer in England who gets caught using performance enhancing drugs has to be an idiot, and that he believes 80 to 90% of boxers are taking and using PEDs. I believe everything he said there in every particular, because of my own experience. In a past life in the 80s, mid 80s to early 90s, I was a competitive bodybuilder. I competed in a number of junior shows. I won a couple, and I was using steroids then prodigiously, as was everybody else that I was competing against. So I know what steroids can do and what they can't do. They can allow you to train harder for longer. They do help to repair. They help with injuries. They retain protein in the muscle for longer, so that the muscle has longer to feed on the protein and thereby recover and grow in adaptation to the stress you're placing on it in training. But they also have a massive psychological effect. If you know you're taking this thing that's giving you the edge, or as a case may be, you're levelling the playing field, it gives you a massive boost in confidence. And that's huge for any sport, especially one that involves you trying to render an opponent unconscious before he does the same to you, which is the brute reality of top level professional boxing. I I even broke my neck in America smuggling steroids from Mexico into the States when I lived over there in the early 1990s. That was in 1992. I was 25. So I know all about steroids, and I know the mindset involved in taking them. And that mindset, for someone who was willing to do whatever it took, in my case, at the level I was at, imagine that at a high level when you've got millions and tens of millions of pounds involved, fame, fortune, glory. Clearly, with that, with that factored into proceedings, any top level athlete who really is in it to win it is going to use PEDs. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're not going to admit it. This is a chasm of misunderstanding that exists between the fans of any sport and its competitors. They know how hard it is to get in the kind of shape required to perform at such a high level, which in some cases is almost superhuman. And we demand that from our athletes. We want them to jump higher, run faster, play football with much more aggression and power, punch harder in the ring. So we feed that mentality. Conor Benn's only sin was in getting caught. He got caught. That's it. He got caught. I've written articles defending Lance Armstrong in the past when it came to light the extent of his drug taking. Again, his only sin was in getting caught. His only sin was in getting caught. He was a fiercely competitive man with a fiercely competitive spirit. So clearly has Conor Benn. And so has most top flight every top flight boxer. You have to understand the stress that these guys put their bodies under. Training camps, sparring, round after round after round, running in the morning, strength and conditioning. You think they can do all that on protein shakes? You must be having a fucking laugh. So I have no doubt that the doctor is right when he says that 80 to 90% of top level boxers or boxers will be on PEDs. The sport demands it. The ethos of the sport demands it. Fuck all this shite you hear about integrity in boxing. There's no integrity in boxing or any other top level sport. It's about winning. Winning is all. And in boxing, the wealth is so it's so disproportionately distributed between the top and the bottom that the guys at the bottom, if they want to make any money, then they're going to do whatever it takes to get there or to try and get there to maximise their potential. Having said that, boxing is the only sport where you cannot allow PEDs. Boxing is the only sport that has to be clean because of the nature of the sport, where we're talking about concussive punches to the head. And in the context of the Ben Eubank Jr. fight, we're talking about a fighter in Chris Eubank who was going to be there depleted. And so his punch resistance would have been less. It was a recipe for disaster. And I think that's reflected in the anger towards Eddie Hearn, towards Conor Benn, because this fight should never have been allowed to go ahead regardless of the issue of PEDs. It was always a match made in hell. And it was never about anything other than capitalising on their second names due to their father's respective legacies. And despite what had happened to Michael Watson at the hand of Chris Eubank Sr., and despite what had happened to Gerald McClellan at the hands of Nigel Benn, people wanted to capitalise, all involved. This was about money. It was a money grab, but the damage that it's caused now, the adverse publicity is unbounded. So I think that Conor Benn's career may be over. I think this will dog him. I think I can't see how he's going to be able to clear his name unless the doctor that I mentioned, Usman Sajjad, takes a fall. If he is thrown under the bus, if he decides he'll take the rap, he'll say that he gave something to Conor Benn that he didn't know he was taking, and he might get a nice payoff for that. I wouldn't be surprised if he is thrown under the bus when finally Conor Benn makes his case as to why he's innocent and why this substance was in his body. But as I say, I feel sorry for Conor Benn. I repeat, his only sin was in getting caught. He's now become the poster boy for everything that's wrong with boxing. But what's wrong with boxing is not Conor Benn. What's wrong with boxing is rank hypocrisy. And that's what's wrong with society as a whole. A boxing ring is perceived as the most honest place in a dishonest society. That's why Conor Benn is being held up and demonised to the extent he has, because he punctured the illusions of thousands of fans who wanted to believe that he was as he portrayed himself and as he was portrayed, Boxer, Conor Benn is a fantastic boxer. What PEDs can't make you into is a fantastic boxer. His skill set is not the result of PEDs. That's the result of his boxing IQ. It's a result of his dedication. It's a result of his determination. But the PEDs do make a massive difference when you're in training camp with regard to being able to recover, train harder for longer, and go to the ring, get to the ring in the best possible shape. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for now. I'll put a link into my latest Morningstar column regarding this issue, along with the other issues that I find that are profoundly wrong with boxing at the minute. Peace out. Have a nice day.